Congratulations on an incredible film, Jemima. I have to tell you, there are so many incredible moments from the plot line to the characters to the casting to the music and wardrobe. And I want to kind of start here. Can you tell me what the big idea is behind the film, which you penned the screenplay for, which all the storylines lead to? Like, what is that big one? Because there's so many iterations underneath that.
Well, very nice to meet you, Raj, and thank you for having me on.
Of
Um,
course.
uh, I, I, I mean, I think it's not autobiographical, but it is somewhat based on my experience of having lived in Pakistan between the age of 20 and 30. I lived with my ex-husband's entire extended family, including his father and his sisters and their husbands and their kids. And I watched
Wow.
them go through the process of, most of them had had arranged marriages, in fact, all of them.
Yeah.
And then his nephews and nieces who were teenagers when I got there, and by the time I left, were going through that process themselves. And it had sort of become something more akin to what they called an assisted marriage, where it was really an introduction by the people, I guess, that know them best and love them most. And I was almost sort of semi on the committee for those choices, and became involved in them. And it kind of changed my view a little. So when I came back to the UK and my friends were in their 30s and looking at settling down and finding a kind of life partner or a father for their future kids, we'd have this conversation. We'd go, who might your parents choose, or a committee of the people who know you best choose? And would it work? What would that look like if you took out the
Mhm.
component of sexual chemistry?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's just so much to unpack right from what you said there. But before we continue on, I want to ask you this, Jemima, because it's a very curious thing for me. Shekar Kapoor directed the film. Can you talk to me a little bit about that alliance between you and he about this particular project? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should say it because he is quite a curious choice for a rom-com because he's obviously made some fantastic films, but they are definitely not rom-coms. So Elizabeth and even Bandit Queen, it's hardly known for its laughs. So
Right.
um, I thought in a way that's what made him, I think, a really interesting choice for this, from my perspective, because I like rom-coms that are more grounded in reality and have something quite meaningful to say. And I think if we'd gone for a slightly more kind of straightforward comedy director, we wouldn't have had what I think is I can't speak for you, but a film that has moved people and has some kind of profound things, I think, to say beyond the laughs. And I think that's kind of Shaker's speciality, is the sort of truth and emotion of a film, as well as, I think he slightly feels like the jokes are there on the page, they'll play out if you've got, good actors, but it's the depth and the truth that he's very interested in.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because you choose to lend the storylines to fit the rom-com genre, but it could have also quite easily have fit into a melodrama treatment. And it would have been as equally palpable from my perspective, having seen the film. I'm curious, was this to speak specifically to an audience that you wanted to go watch the film, or was it more to kind of maybe make the serious undertones of the film a little bit more easier to absorb?
I think it's a really good question. I think that it was Freud who said that a joke is just the truth with a smile. And I really like that. And I think that sometimes you can say things more easily and sometimes arguably even more impactfully if you're doing it in a light-hearted way rather than kind of bludgeoning people with your point of view.
Absolutely. I want to just talk a little bit about the title. Now, the title from a pop cultural perspective, we know is a very famous Tina Turner song. But in this particular perspective, I felt, really the idea behind what's love got to do with it was the fundamental core nucleus of the main theme of all the storylines. I wanted to ask you this question because I feel that all the characters in some capacity play ode to the concept of love from their varying different perspectives. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I really felt that with every storyline throughout the film.
Well, I'm really happy that you felt that way. And I think that's right. I have to say, there were lots of titles kind of flying around. It's a confusing one in America because it's such a well-known song and it had been a film. So there was a
Yes.
lot to think about it. But I do think that you're right, that it is about different types of love and the meaning of
Hmm.
love. Because love can be about family love, it can be companionate love, it can be passionate love. And I think those are all things that are examined in the film. Even friendship, the love that comes from Emma Thompson is, I had her be a single, happy older woman because
Yes.
I think because it was important to show that there are lots of different ways to find belonging and fulfillment and contentment. And in her case, it's about friendship and belonging to a kind of chosen tribe, as it were.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And based off of that, I also feel that there was an interesting and intentional cultural juxtaposition throughout the film between the main romance story between Kaz and Joe, of course, but also, as you mentioned, the friendship story between Aisha and Kath. But I also felt that with the additional element of the generational storyline that was kind of simmering underneath the main plots between Samira and her grandmother, especially that poignant scene right at the ending. I want to ask you this. Can you share some of, the ideas behind the layering here to speak to kind of this main cultural juxtaposition? So, because I don't want to give too much away, I'd love for you to tell me how much we can share regarding that, because I could honestly really unpack this with you.
Uh, well, thank you. I mean, Shaker, to be honest, always calls it a family drama. He thinks it's that more than a rom-com, and the studio call it a rom-com. And I think that you can come at it from different angles. So I'm really happy that you've kind of you're talking about the kind of layers and the nuances, because obviously that's always what you aim for when you're writing something. And, even for the actors, they're, bringing multi-layered performances. So I think I'm just really happy that you kind of pointed this out.
Absolutely. I mean, it was very glaring for me. I felt it was kind of like the common denominator between all the stories, all the story arcs spoke to that for me. I want to ask you this because, being able to bring a story to life and ensuring that it stays within all the multifaceted nuances that it needs to tell, casting is so important. Did you have any piece in the casting? And, what did that whole thing look like? Because the cast is also extremely diverse.
I mean, we got really lucky. I mean, it was incredibly fortunate to have all these incredible actors. And it's not just this film, I don't think, about the leads, much as I love them and think that Shazad and Lily James and Emma Thompson are wonderful. The actors surrounding them, Shabana Azmi, who's such a big star in India, but isn't so well known to, Western audiences, and Sajal Ali, who's this incredible star from Pakistan, and then Asim Chowdhury, who's a comic genius and very well known in a particular generation. So for my sons, he's like a comic hero, but he is not known perhaps so well in America. And, these incredible actors all coming together. And even from my point of view, I mean, one of the great things in the film, we managed, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan is a real hero of mine. I mean, for him to come in and not just do the voice, the vocals on the wedding song, Mahi Sona, but also to play himself in the film, playing the Qawwali singer, was unbelievable privilege. And because he played at my wedding, I used to tour America and Canada with him to raise money for my ex-husband's cancer charity. And we used to go with Rahat and Nusrat. So I became very familiar with Qawwali music, and to have him in the film. So, I mean, the casting was incredible. And yeah, I was very lucky to be involved with that because I was also a producer on the project. I was, part of those discussions. And I honestly, I am not just saying this because we're promoting the film, but I don't think there's a dud in there. Even, I don't know if you know the story about the Nanny Jan character, but the grandmother figure was not the original. Pakiza Beg, who plays Nanny Jan, was not originally cast in the film. And because it was COVID, her family, the original actress, dropped out days before filming. And we panicked, and I sent an email out to everyone in the cast saying help. And Jeff Mirza, who plays the dad, emailed back and said, oh, I've got someone. He sent me like this random video of this woman singing. And we were desperate. So we were like, yeah, she's hired. And then she turned out to not only never have acted before, but she was his mum, and he hadn't told us.
Oh my gosh.
In the end. So yeah, we were really fortunate.
And it's interesting because she played that role really well. Like I felt her pain. I felt that, and it was very reminiscent of, the kind of experiences I've had with my grandparents too. Like it was very palpable from that perspective, especially, and I don't want to kind of, give too much away because I want people to go to theaters to go watch the film, take their families, take their friends, because it really is a film that everyone will appreciate. But that poignant scene at the ending, when all she really truly wanted was to keep that nurtured relationship with her granddaughter, that sense of connectivity, which is huge in our culture, really came through for me in that moment. But I want everyone to watch it, so I'm not going to say what that moment was. I want to ask you this, Jemima. How did you get Emma Thompson to do the Bhangra on film? How hilarious was that? It was wonderful.
Do you know what? Even at the premiere in London, there's a moment where they've caught this kind of off camera. She's waiting to go on stage to introduce the film. And she and Sajil start dancing together. And she's such a hoot. And someone caught it on camera and it went viral on TikTok because it's like so unlikely, Emma Thompson dancing Bhangra. But she's just so up for a laugh, and she's up for everything. And she's just a sensation. We all love her so much.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I had the opportunity to speak with her about the film.
Oh, great.
Yes, I did. And she just loved doing the character. Like she was bubbling with all kinds of enthusiasm around just the whole idea, with her character being such an integral component between the two different conflicting worlds, even though she belonged to one, and it was almost, it was almost jokeable, some of the ignorance behind her character, but so loving because her intentions were always in the right place. So
Yes.
it was fascinating speaking to her about that. I want to be able to round off my chat with you, Jemima, just to fill in some of the gaps around the wardrobe choices that you guys made. There were so many interesting music choices that you guys made. Can you speak to this? Because it's what kind of helped the film all come together for me.
I'm really happy you mentioned the music, because the music was so important to how the film has appeared at the end. We had the incredible composer Nitin Sawhney, who's an amazing British Indian talent, and
Yes.
he's so talented, and he worked with Naughty Boy Shahid Khan, who's a British Pakistani musician here, and they came together and did the wedding song with Rahat, and then Lily James did the vocals on it, and and Kanika Kapoor also did some vocals on it, and we had this incredible blend of British Asian talent, and for me, that was what the film was all about. It was about coming together and joy and showcasing British Asian and Asian talent on screen in a way that perhaps we don't always see in Western mainstream rom-coms.
Well, you absolutely succeeded, Jemima. The film is such a delight. It's a very successful film from my perspective in terms of hitting all of the arcs that you hope a serious, I'm going to call it a serious rom-com should hit. I'd love to kind of close off by asking you to just share with everybody watching, listening, and reading this, why should they go out and see this film if they haven't gotten enough from us already regarding that?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, it's there to entertain, and I think if it does its job, it should, and it has done over here in the UK. It should make you laugh and cry, and that for me is enough to hopefully get you into the cinemas. But I just really hope everyone enjoys it.
I absolutely think they will, because I'm a harsh critic and I loved every single second of it. You are fabulous. I wish you much success with the theatre-wide release here in Canada on May the 19th. And thank you so much for speaking with me, Jemima. What a delight you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Raj.
You too.